Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of the LearnIt Podcast. I am so excited to be in this beautiful office with Mr. John De Faveri. So thank you so much for being here with me today, John.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming.
All right. So hopefully we can get really cool insights out of you.
Okay.
Get you to start sharing those secrets that you've been keeping in education, and then help us, all of us learn from all of your great experiences.
Okay. We'll try that.
And I'm going to start off by, what is the most consistent question of this podcast? So this is one that's never changed. For every guest we do it, it's because it's my favorite question.
Sure.
Which is about your childhood. So I want you to take myself and our guests back to your childhood. How would your parents, how would your teachers have described you as a kid? And would you have seen yourself here today?
I think I would have seen myself in education because if you were to ask my parents if they were still alive, they would probably describe me as a shy, reflective peacemaker. One of the things that not only my parents, but my aunts and uncles always said about me was, you have a way of trying to bring people together in a peaceful way. And I think they appreciated it more because my cousins were younger than I was. So I was always the babysitter. And my aunts in particular would always remark that you are so good with our children. I mean, there's an age difference of probably 8 to 10 years between me and the next youngest. So that's probably what they would describe. I think my teachers at school would probably describe me the same way. I was one of those kids that never saw the principal's office, so that was always a good thing. So, and always trying to do that, trying to find ways to bring people together and focus them on creating just a warm, positive, peaceful environment. So I think that's probably the words that they would choose to use.
Yeah, lovely. And did you always think that you would be working in education? I know you said you're a peacemaker, bring people together. Is this the industry that you saw yourself in, or was it something else that you're working towards?
I pretty well knew growing up that I would end up something. I mean, other alternatives I had explored were speech pathology, for example. I was always interested in language acquisition, how children learned how to speak, but it was always within that domain. And again, probably I think when I reflect back, the defining moment was, I remember very clearly, we were sitting at the dining room table, my parents, my brother, my sister-in-law, who was a teacher. We were having this conversation way back when about some of the challenges that she was having with her students and sharing some of her experience that her colleagues were having. And I just remember that was the conversation that I decided that I think I can do something with these young people that will make a difference in their lives. And that was how I knew that was the career path I was going to start to go down. So, and I was still in high school at that time. Yeah. So then headed off to university. And as I said, it was, I had an interest in language acquisition. I always thought there was a link between language acquisition, education, young children. And it kind of just evolved down that road, and here I am.
Yeah. And, it's a great segue into what I'm going to get to next, which is you started as a teacher, right? And I have the name of the school. Was it St. Margaret?
St. Margaret Mary.
St. Margaret Mary.
Yep.
Was that something that you always remember, that first teaching? Can you take me back, if you recall, your first day being a teacher? What was that like?
I'm actually going to take you back to before the first day.
Okay.
When we had gone with a couple of friends of ours, decided that we were going to go away for the Labor Day weekend in advance of starting into your brand new career. And we were at a place, Lake Cameron, just outside Peterborough area. And I remember sitting at a picnic table with my wife, And for some reason, I got this overwhelming feeling. And the question that came was, what am I going to do tomorrow? I'm going to be standing in front of 32 students in grade 6. And I started to think about what happens if I do something wrong. I could potentially impact the lives of these innocent children. And I could just, this sense of pressure, like you can't do anything wrong. And so I remember walking into that portable, it was a portable at the time, walking in and just looking out at their faces and realizing, I think this is going to be okay. I think I'm going to be okay. And they were an incredible group of students. As a matter of fact, one of them is one of the principals in our school.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. And he talks, whenever we get a chance to get together, he always reminds me about what are the things that he remembers most. Because I had him in grade 6 and also in grade 8. And it was, he'll tell you, he doesn't remember the math lesson or the geography class. He just remembers the things that were all of the interpersonal connections and the relationships that you build with students. At the time, Cosm hockey, floor hockey was big. And so, we used to, a couple of other teachers and I, we used to have games with the students and they used to love it. And that's what they remember. I bump into others just in my travels. When I was here a few years ago as a superintendent, being in some of our schools, again, you see the students that were in your class. They're now teachers. They remember those interactions. And for me, that's probably the most rewarding thing that I can think back, that pressure that I felt on that Monday before going into school for the very first day, and just that sense of, I know I made the right decision. And I think a part of it was probably the response and acceptance of the students in that very first class that I remember most.
Yeah, and I think to some extent, you may have inspired some of them to pursue a career.
Would be nice if that happened. And if not, then that's okay too.
Do you find that, when you started, the kids were really different?
Extremely.
And if you go back today to a grade 6 classroom as a first day teacher, your experience would probably be different. Does that keep you up at night sometimes, that worry you, or is that more of a positive sentiment that they're changing in a better way?
I worry about the developments in our society and the pressures that it's causing, especially on the emotional, social, mental well-being of our students. I think we've gone through, we don't need to go back and revisit the impact of the pandemic. I think that really had an impact on everybody. But the pressures that are there are significantly different than they were 40 years ago. My career goes back further than that. But things like advances in technology, while they're supposed to be all positive, sometimes there are unintended consequences. So, I look at what's the impact of social media, bullying, the connection between, what I call anonymous bullying. Before, if there were incidences in the classroom or in the school, you knew who it was that you were dealing with. You could deal with it. Right now, there was no such thing as your smartphone where you could do whatever. So that's what concerns me, is have we as a society prepared our children, our students, for where we are now and where we're potentially headed. Great things always start off in a very positive way, and somehow they don't always continue down that track. Somebody likes to take it off track, and then you end up with issues that you're trying to resolve after the fact. So that's the part that worries me more than anything else. It's just the advances that are happening and the ethics around all of it can be a real challenge for us as a society. Yeah.
And it's an interesting balance, because on one side, you do want the kids to interact with technology so that they can develop the skills that they need for whatever our world is today.
That's right.
But their learning experience needs to still be based on this foundation of interaction, of social interaction, of respect, being respectful. Those components we can't lose because we have this other fancy, shiny object called technology.
Right.
So it's definitely an interesting balance to strike in terms of being able to do both. And you see some schools skew one way more towards the technology side, and some skew more towards no technology side.
Yeah, I fundamentally believe that all human beings were created to be socially interactive, not in any other means other than you and I sitting here being that way. I just think that there's other stuff that's happened that should never detract from that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And when you, moved on from being a teacher into your role, into more on the principal, and then today to the director of education, there's a lot of teachers today who are maybe not unsure about the decision on if they should continue to teach or if they should take a route similar to yours and try and pursue something on more of the different side. What helped you make that decision?
For me, a large part of it was encouragement from other people. I didn't really, my goal when I first started teaching was I had decided that I wanted to be the best teacher that would ever be around. And I really believed that my career was just going to take me down that path in teaching in a classroom with students because, again, receiving a lot of positive feedback from the daily interaction with the students that I had in my class. I never really had any idea that I would be going outside of a classroom. I really thought this is my calling. This is what I want to do. And then all of a sudden, people started to say, why don't you think about doing something different? Why don't you think about, becoming a VP? And I thought, why? I remember asking a couple of people, why would you suggest that? Like, why are you seeing something that I'm not seeing? And the comment was, you have this knack for working with people, bringing people together, which made me reflect on when you asked me the first question, what would your parents and teachers say? That's, I guess, something that I've heard from the time that I was very young. You have this knack of bringing people together. I never really put the two of them together until much later in life. And so that's what it was. A lot of people acknowledging, saying, you should do this. You should try, you should move on. Encouragement from a lot of people that I had a great degree of respect for that were fantastic leaders. So a lot of it was really their encouragement. I don't know that it's something that I know for a fact it was not something that I deliberately said, well, let me do this, and this. Just kind of
It
just happened. Yeah.
And you need those kind of people, I feel, in your life, because sometimes it's hard for us individually to make those decisions for our career. But the people that, mentor us or coach us or really believe in us, they push us to do difficult things.
And that's something that I carried through. Hopefully, people would say that is what those individuals did for me. I want to do for others too. Sometimes people are fearful of the unknown. They don't know what they're getting into, but you can see some real potential in them. And I've always believed that I owe it to them, just as others saw it with me, that you need to encourage individuals and to know that there are support systems that are there if they decide to make that decision. It's very challenging. I mean, I look back to some of the things that I dealt with as a principal 30 years ago and what some of our principals are dealing with today. It's a world of difference. And those individuals that do make that decision to move on into leadership, for further leadership roles, also need to know that they have a support system that's there to help them along the way, and mentors. And that's part of our responsibility as leaders, is to make sure that they are in a good spot.
Because it's only if you do that, then they would do that for their next generation and so on, right? It transcends through. That's one thing about humans, that we always want to help each other, especially people that we see ourselves in, our younger self, and we're like, I want to help this individual get to where they can be. Do you ever miss being around students when you're a principal, vice principal, even today? Do you miss it?
I do. It's the one thing that I keep telling people, that's what I miss most. I miss most because I was 10 years as a principal, and I just know the connections that you're able to make within a community and the difference that you can make within a community. And it is that daily interaction, seeing the students. I was in one school for 8 years, so seeing
Wow.
a young child come in grade 1 and watching them till they leave in grade 8, and all of the growth that's happened for them. Once you're outside of the school, you're 2 steps removed, and you sometimes wonder what's the impact of decisions that I am part of, or decisions that I'm making. What does it look like for them back in the school? So that's one of the things that I enjoy most, is that part of my calendar is I'd like to get out into the schools and just see what's going on, have a chance. A lot of the times the students will put on a little performance for you or whatever, but it's just nice to see them within their own learning environment, to see what's really happening in our schools, which 99.9% I say are great things that are happening.
Because you see your decisions and everything that happens, all the work that's being done at the board level, you can get to see it. That's right, the impact of it. No, that's very well said. I'm going to shift gears here into some more, diving a little bit deeper into YCDSB as well.
Yep.
You've got, about maybe 50,000 students, close to 50,000 students. How do you manage, one is the inclusion and diversity part of it, where there's so many, also we have a large immigrant population, we have a whole different lot of cultures coming in. How is that managed from your perspective in terms of creating a great educational experience for everyone that's part of our schools? And then, are there any things that you're looking forward to, looking ahead, anything that's getting you more excited looking to the future?
I have to say that for me, one of the things that I do rely on is the faith that I grew up in, and the fundamental belief that as far as inclusion and equity and all of those initiatives, if we truly believe that we are all created equal, then I don't understand how it is that we wouldn't be embracing all that we're doing to focus on what are the things that we all share in common, regardless of what part of the world do you come from. We have our population has changed dramatically in terms of the demographics. At one time, it was not what it is today. But it is about that fundamental embracing where do we come from, treating each other with respect, acknowledging that we're all equal. No one is better than anyone else. And so I think within our system, when I look at how are we moving forward with our inclusion, diversity initiatives, I don't see any way that we're not moving forward in a positive way if we all believe in that one fundamental tenet, which is we're all created equal, and we're all brothers and sisters. We look a little different, we think a little different, but that's what makes the world a beautiful place.
That's where innovation happens, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be where we are today without those different thoughts.
Yep.
Absolutely. And when you look at education today, and from your position as well, what is one of the biggest challenges that you see today in our industry? And let's say you had a magic wand, what would you do to change it?
Well, I don't want to seem negative, but the reality is there are so many more things that the education sector wants to do. And economy and finances and funding is always an issue, because we all want to do so much more. And it's difficult sometimes because after all is said and done, there's a cost to doing that. And my worry is that if we don't keep up with the levels of funding that are required in education, there could be some negative consequences. And again, I don't want to be critical of government. I mean, they're managing what they need to manage, but it makes it difficult. I mean, in our situation, we know we have a deficit that we have to work on getting rid of. And so that's the push-pull of making sure that you leave those programs and services in place that are not going to ultimately hurt the students, but that you're going to continue to move forward. So that's one of the hardest challenges. It's probably been the way it's been in education for many years as a publicly funded enterprise. But I would imagine that medical sector might say the same, and doctors might say the same. But I think it's, at the end of the day, it's all about where are our priorities and what do we want to do.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I mean, that's something that I've heard also from, other leaders at different school boards. It's not an easy thing to navigate by any means. It's complex, and there's so many more moving pieces
There are.
than one might see on surface.
Yep.
And sometimes it gives me the realization that it's easy to judge and just say, oh, this is the situation. But when you dig into it and you see all these, you're like, okay, you know what? That is tough. That is not easy to, because there's things that students are already experiencing that's beneficial for them. You don't want to take that away.
That's right.
You also want to innovate.
That's right.
There's like all these forces that are pulling. And how do you feel that you're, to me at least, it's not an easy job, right? Because you've got the pressure from the government, you've got the principals, some extent you've got the parents, because they roll down the principals who come to you, and then you got the teachers.
Right.
So sort of the decisions that are made here impact a sphere of different stakeholders versus when you're isolated at a school. How do you manage those, relationships, and how do you make sure that, well, everyone can't be happy, but everyone is at least as happy as they could be?
That's a really good question. What happens in our board, and I would think all boards in the province, is that you need to have a plan in place that guides your decision making. For us, our multi-year strategic plan tells us what it is that we want to do. How do we move forward on the pillars that we've identified, on the pillars of equity, and on the pillars of academic excellence? And without that, you don't have a place that you're navigating towards. And difficult as it may be, it's about communication, and it's about talking about what it is that the system really wants to do, what is it the system is focused on, and making sure that the decisions that you make have that as the guiding principle as to what is it that you're making a decision about. Many times, of course, parents expect a lot, and sometimes it's difficult to deliver on those extremely high expectations. But it is about the communication. What is it? Speaking with people, presentations, dealing with whatever it is that's at hand, is really what I see makes a difference. Engaging people, involving them, making sure that from central office we're doing a really good job of communicating those things to our schools, who can then communicate them within our own individual communities, is what it's all about. And again, our schools know that if there's a challenge, you come to Central and we'll try to help you get over it.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the job, right?
Yeah.
And when you look forward into what's coming up for YCDSB, what are one or two programs or initiatives that you're particularly excited about?
Well, we're trying to constantly look at what's the changing landscape for preparing our students for the future. So when we look at what are things that are a reality, for example, we look at the significant expansion of our e-learning programs, the requirements not only that the government has imposed on the mandatory, how many credits does a student have to take through their high school career, but that environment of virtual work, about how technology, learning through, it's more than just the teacher in the classroom. It's expanding beyond that. AI is also something that we're looking into, and what are all of the, again, as I mentioned, there are a lot of ethical issues that you have to assess when doing that. So it is preparing the students for what it is that's out there. Changing workforce demands, you can look at things and say it's been a known fact for the last 25 years. Canada is not the only country that's struggling with having programs in place to deal with shortage in skilled trades. So how do we look at some of our programs and say, how can we incorporate that into the types of programs that we deliver, and looking around the province and what are other school boards doing and how are they addressing that. Making sure that we continue those partnerships with the contact with our particular community colleges that are there, some of our trade unions, for example, that offer placements for our students. So it's about that. It's about being responsive
as well.
Yeah.
And when you, I'm just going to dig into the piece of your, AI, because that is a hot topic, right? Everybody wants to know what is the school board doing, what are the schools doing when it comes to AI. So talk to me a little bit about what's your thinking and methodology behind introducing this sort of piece of technology that is so powerful, yet can have consequences in a publicly funded school board. Innovating with pace, yet doing it carefully. So again, all these factors probably pull in you left and right. So how do you navigate that, or how are you thinking about it?
Well, I can say that one of the things that I believe in is let's move slowly. And let's make sure that we are, as educators, doing everything that we can within our power to inform the students about what is the use of it. Why would we use it? How do we use it? Again, I'm going to go back and use the ethical application of what it is that we're doing. I think the possibilities are fantastic in terms of how do we use it in a classroom. So, for example, if a student wants to go on ChatGPT, for example, and say, "Can you give me a 2,000-word essay on blah?" I wonder how that's getting that information just is easier than it used to be a while ago. But then what do you do with it? How do you know that there's knowledge transfer happening within that student's mind? You can produce it and give it to the teacher, but it's more about what do you do as an educator with that, where you can do some deep diving and some probing and say, so you found this out. Can you tell me what you think about it? Can you tell me how you got there? How did you come to that conclusion?
More opinion based.
So it's the opportunity for higher order thinking is there.
Yeah.
But that's what you have to focus on. So you're not using it as a shortcut. You're using it as an opportunity to say, I can get a lot of information a lot quicker.
Right.
But then my obligation is to use that to do some higher order thinking, critical thinking, which, in prior years without it, you'd be spending a lot of your time just trying to gather that information. So now you can gather it quicker.
I love the way you frame that, John, because you're really expanding your learning at that point, right? And I think it's more about, if you've got this piece of output, now what, right? Okay, the truth is that you're still going to have access to this once you're done with school, right? But the way that you frame it, which is like, how do you unlock that higher order thinking because of these applications? I think that's very powerful. And I have also seen that a lot of the times the relationship that the teacher has with the student plays such a significant role in the way that they want to treat anything that's given to them. Well, I'd say like 80% of students, and then 20% are hard to, on average, I would say that relationship is so significant that sometimes it's overseen, right? But especially now we can see that when we introduce such a powerful technology, you would see in the same school, the same group of students in one class, they're not using it at all, and another one, they're using it fully. And it's sometimes you can see that relationship that the teacher has with the students transcend into that I don't want to versus I want to, because I feel like kids are a lot smarter than we think that they are.
And again, I've been around in education for so long that the parallel I see is to the early years of my career, when the big topic of conversation was, don't let students use calculators. It's going to dumb them down. And then you realize, no, it just means that instead of them trying to figure out, and you're going to have some that are never going to learn their multiplication tables, are you better off to focus on working so hard for a student to get something that they just, because of memory or whatever other issues, or are you not better to teach them how to use it effectively, so that when they get into the world and they have to go and install a carpet in somebody's living room, that they actually know how to calculate area and not worry about 7 times 7? Oh no, that's
right. And I feel like we hopefully you can tell me of that. But my point is that when I do research, because it is a bit similar, it seems like schools also struggled when the calculators came about. Because they're like, what do we do now? How do we do math? How do we assess?
Yeah.
But eventually we got here,
That's right.
right? So we're going to get, eventually we'll get to a place where it's coexisting
Yep.
and it's adding value rather than taking
Absolutely.
value away. It's a matter of time more
Absolutely.
than anything else.
Yep.
No, I love that. All right, I'm going to shift gears here into our rapid fire round.
Sure.
So in this round, I'll give you a question. It'll be quick.
Okay.
You can give me an answer in less than a minute or so.
Yeah.
It's probably one of my favorite ones as well.
Okay.
All right, first question. What is your go-to productivity hack?
If you're going to do something, do it well or don't do it at all. I think a lot of times, people like to do things just like, let's get it done. I don't particularly like that because I'm not sure what the end product is going to be. And so trying to find that balance between let's get it done for the sake of getting it done versus
Doing it well.
doing it well. Yeah.
Love it. Okay. Second question. What is one part of your daily routine that you can't skip?
My daily routine, and I'll tell you this, the older you get, the more routines you have to try to stick to because it does help me. And my routine looks like this. I cannot give up my morning cup of espresso at home.
Okay.
And then I get in here when it's nice and quiet and I look at my calendar for the day and then I can chart out where is it that I can carve out some time to do the things that are not what I'm going to call reactive, like got to react to that, but I should give myself some thinking time to reflect on where are we going. So that's my routine. If you take one of those components away,
yeah,
I'm not
I
good.
feel normal. Yeah. Same. I mean, coffee is definitely an integral part.
It's got to be espresso. It's got to be nice.
That's your Italian heritage.
Absolutely. It's got to be that double espresso in the morning.
Okay, wow. I love that's strong. I don't think I could do it in the morning like that, but no, I respect it. Okay. What is one thing that not many people know about you?
I don't think anybody knows that I enjoy watching classic movies.
Oh, wow.
That's what I like to do to relax. There's lots of, current stuff that's out there, but I love to tune into Turner Classic Movies and watch some of those old things in black and white and think to what the world must have been like back then. So
if you could suggest one, because I don't know that I have the patience to watch black and white movie, but I could give it a shot. If you could tell me one, and I should go home and watch tonight.
I've always loved Casablanca.
Casablanca?
Yep.
Okay. Maybe I'll give it a stand, then I'll email you. Tell you.
Look it up. Humphrey Bogart.
Okay. What was your favorite subject in school when you were a student, and what was your least favorite subject?
My favorite subject was always math.
Okay.
And my least favorite was music. And I'll tell you why. Because way back when, God rest her soul, my grade 3 teacher took me aside and told me, the biggest favor you could do to all of your classmates, John, is whenever we have music, don't sing. I will find you something else to do because you're killing it for everybody else. So I used to go sit in the back of the classroom and do something else.
Why do I feel like we had the same teacher?
She was a great teacher, but it was around Christmas time that she finally worked up the nerve to say, don't open your mouth.
Yeah. Because you probably sang to enjoy it rather than focusing on your vocals, right? So,
and I love music. Honestly, I love music. And, there are times where, unfortunately, like a lot of people, I'll try to sing along in the shower. And I remember the kids saying, Dad, please don't do that. Just, block the door. We don't want to hear you.
Oh my God. Okay. I love it. Yeah, no, totally. Okay. Last on the rapid fire round, or maybe I'll do two.
Yeah.
What's the best advice you've ever received or given to someone?
The best advice I could ever give someone is know who you are and be true to yourself, and don't let others pull you away from that. Know where your moral compass is pointed and stick to it.
Okay, beautiful. All right, and then the last question on the rapid fire: one word that best describes the York Catholic District School Board.
The greatest, one word.
I'm really making this rapid.
Oh, innovative.
You could give me
Innovative.
innovative.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Okay, lovely. All right, so now towards the end of our podcast, we do this fun thing, which is called the final question.
Okay.
So I'm going to get my handy notebook here.
Yep.
And I've got a question from one of our previous guests.
Okay.
And so I'm going to read it out to you.
Okay.
You can answer it. And then you will leave a question
okay.
for our next guest.
Okay.
All right. So let's see who we've got. Okay. Let's see. We have so many at this point. Okay. I have got a question here. This is the latest one that I could find. From Patty McDonald, who is the head of school at Montcrest School.
Okay.
And she was also the director at Case. So her question is, education is always evolving. How do you support teachers or learners to do hard things?
I have an outlook on life that says you're better off to have tried something and not have been as successful as you wanted to than to not have tried it at all, which speaks to innovation. And you have to give everybody within the educational system the opportunity to struggle through and just have supports there for them so that they don't feel like you're failing. It's not about failure. It's about you didn't quite hit what you wanted to. And to help them along that journey to say, you're taking the risk to try something. Everyone's going to be better off. You're going to be better off as an educator. The students are going to be better off. And because I don't believe that at the end of it, it's harmful. What's important is to make sure that there's a safety net there for everybody so that when it doesn't quite work out 100%, it's okay. You're better off at least having tried it.
Yeah, I think that connects so well to your one word of innovative, especially with the school board. Wonderful. So I'm going to ask you to write down a question here.
Oh, okay.
Put you on the spot. Probably didn't even warn you about this. So that's my
Let me grab my glasses so I can see what I'm writing.
Absolutely.
How difficult does the question have to be?
However you like it. You could do something personal, something more serious. I will not tell you the guest's name though, because I know who's next, but I'll not tell you because I want to know the question unfiltered. Okay, wonderful. I'll keep it as a surprise to myself.
All right.
And in that way, we'll both be surprised.
All right. Sounds great.
All right. Well, thank you everybody who tuned in. Thank you, John, so much for your time. This was so wonderful. This is great. I really enjoyed getting to learn more about you, your journey. You have so much knowledge, and I think it transcends through everything that you say. So I appreciate you being willing to share that with a larger audience.
Great.
With myself and welcoming us to this beautiful space. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for the invitation. So glad to do it.